Hello there, ladies and gentlemen. I am the CHALL. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, whenever you are watching this. And today, Chall Chats Transfers, it's here. It's earlier than expected, but we are finally here with the summer 2024 recruitment plan for Doncaster Rovers Football Club. We have got 5 positions. We've got a top 10 list with a top 3 to go into more detail about. And we'll also give you 2 different predicted squads who I would choose from the list of players that I've come up with. So we have got 50 players and 5 signings. And of course, there'll be 5 different players on each of the 2 predicted teams. So overall, you're going to get 10 potential targets out of a main list of 50. It is all going down today. Please make sure you do like, comment, subscribe, click the notification bell so you never miss another YouTube video. We're on the road to 3,000 subscribers and 500,000 views. Let's get there as soon as possible, please. And for now, ladies and gentlemen, children of all ages, please comment down below your thoughts in the comment section below of what you think of these players. Is there any that you would suggest? Let's get straight into this one by first of all going through the squad we currently have going into next season. So looking at the squad we currently have taking into next season, there are a few areas we do need to look at due to contract situations currently in the air, loanees returning to parent clubs and unlikely to return, and players either already leaving or transfer listed. First of all, everyone wants a new goalkeeper, and a modern sweeper keeper specifically who can play out from the back, comfortable on the ball, comes forward to defend his area and joins in the build-up as a back 3 with the centre-backs. That is the kind of keeper this setup needs. And with one of Jones or Lawler probably likely to be loaned out, it's very interesting to see exactly who we're going to bring in. However, with reports from Alan Nixon that were linked to a loan move for Joe Whitworth from Crystal Palace, that would be a very interesting move. Was obviously spoken more about that on the DRFC daily reports from yesterday. But for me, it's a very interesting one because a sweeper keeper is exactly what we need. Obviously, there is time to transition Lawler and Jones into more sweeper keepers rather than traditional keepers over pre-season. But I don't think Rovers fans will have not necessarily the patience, but the time really to allow that transitional period to happen. They want an out-and-out sweeper keeper who can start number 1 and let Jones and Lawler kind of learn the transition from traditional to sweeper from that particular person. So that's why I think a sweeper keeper is probably most likely going to be on our list, despite the fact we have 2 keepers already for next season. Of central defenders is pretty stacked at the football club. However, for me, a young ball-playing defender, preferably left-footed, would add pace to create more balance to the centre-back pairing and drive the ball forward well. In my opinion, a young defensive project player who can develop and become first-team ready within the next couple of seasons is what we need on a permanent basis, which will then allow Will Flint to keep developing in the under-18s. So preferably I'd go for either a young loanee or I would look at a young permanent project player. Same with the right back role. Jamie Sterry is currently our starting right back, and there's clearly no competition in terms of starting position out and out every week at the minute. However, there isn't any out and out competition behind Sterry to compete for a starting spot, with the release of Charlie Seaman and Tom Nixon returning to parent club Hull City. We need someone who's full of energy, drive, this particular type of attacking fullback with strength for lapping play, both over and under, alongside his pace, and has a range of crossing ability developed within his current setup. I think a young fullback either on loan or again another young project player on a permanent basis is exactly what this club needs in that particular role. Now with Matthew Craig returning to Tottenham, we do need another defensive-minded midfielder, either on loan or permanent. Because if you look at the current midfield setup, you've got Bailey and Broadbent, you've got Ben Close returning from injury, then you've got Sam Stroud and Brown, who of course will probably spend some time with the under-18s, maybe come in for the odd cup appearance or so. And for me, you need that other midfielder that's going to fill that void left by Matthew Craig. We need someone who's a constant winner in a varied range of duels, who is progressive and forward-thinking as a defensive player. And this player gives Ben Close major competition, as well as building relationships with Bailey and Broadbent, whilst allowing Stroud and Brown to keep developing with the under-18s. Finally, and this was an easy one, but I could see why people would want a striker as well. But I've stuck to a 5-position basis for this window video this year. And the final position we need is wingers, because of course, Hakeem Molyneux's contract situations are up in the air, and Deji Satona is transfer listed. So we need at least 2 wingers who are full of pace, full of flair, extremely direct and intelligent. They never stop running into the right areas to make things work. And we preferably need at least one of them who's very good at isolating their man one-on-one. We need quick, direct wingers. And for me, we need that extra bit of zest, that extra bit of quality. And I think we've got some wingers on this list that could do the job. So, without further ado, let's get straight in and start with the sweeper keepers as the 2024 summer recruitment transfer plan video for Doncaster Rovers gets underway. So we kick things off with the keepers, and before we get into our top 3, we have to have a look at the 7 who didn't make it into that top 3 to make up the 10 list. So as you can see there, we've got a mixed range of experience and youth. Louis Molden, ex-Rochdale, of course, at Wolves. You've got Harry Tyra, who was key in the promotion for Chesterfield into League Two. There's no talk at the minute as to whether he's going back. However, I'm sure fans will want a permanent deal for Harry Tyra or another loan deal. But he would be someone that I would definitely be looking at. You've also got Kieran Slicker from promoted Ipswich into the Premier League. He would be a good loan option. You've got Philip Marshall, of course, on loan at MK Dons this past season. So, of course, he's been in a playoff semi-final. So, of course, he's been in that same position as us. You've got Christian Heggie. Now, he is a wild card. For me, he's a young West Ham goalkeeper with plenty of potential. And for me, would be a good option on loan. You've got Nathan Shepherd, who's out of contract at Wycombe, but he killed it in Ireland, I believe, with Dundalk. So for me, I think he would be a very smart pickup. I'd say the most unrealistic option out of the 7 there on that list, and probably the 3 in the top 3 as well, is Carl Hine. Now, he's out of contract at Arsenal. I would say he's a League One Championship goalkeeper, but football is a very strange game. You just never know what's going to happen in football. But for me, to be fair, if there was no restrictions, he would be the guy I would go for. He's very, very good, very quality goalkeeper, very highly rated goalkeeper. I believe he's number 1 for his nationality, Estonia. We'd have a senior international on our books. But for me, I think it's very, 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 very unrealistic. Originally, of course, if you see my social media, Harrison Mel was on that list. But, of course, he signed for York City, so he was quickly off that list. But for me, Carl Hine would be a very unrealistic option, but would be the best option on there out of all 10 of them. Speaking of the 10, we are missing 3 on there. So let's have a look at the 3 that I've chosen to go into a bit more detail about in this video. So we kick off this video with Joseph Anang, 23 years old, West Ham United, out of contract this summer. No idea what's happening with his current contract situation. However, it's all up in the air at the moment. Now, of course, we've got a previous history with ex-Stevenage loanees, with Timothy Lotatalo doing brilliantly. Of course, it's unlikely he will return. He's likely to compete for a place in the Hull squad, as we spoke about in the daily reports last week. But Joseph Anang, for me, would be a very good signing. Comfortable on and off the ball, as well as during build-up play from the back, so it ticks 1 off our list there. He's got previous experience on loan in the EFL with Stevenage and Derby. He's an excellent shot stopper, again, ticks another box. Good reaction speed, again, ticks another box. And he operates as a modern sweeper keeper around and beyond his lines and in his area also. This player ticks every single box of who I would want as a sweeper keeper on a permanent basis. Now, Joseph Anang could be set to leave West Ham United permanently this summer after a long time there. And for me, I think he deserves that permanent move to League One or Two. And I think that Anang would fit in wonderfully here at Doncaster Rovers. And I think being an ex-Stevenage loanee along with Lotatala, he's got that experience then. He's got someone to maybe speak to if he wants some experience from Doncaster, if he wants to speak to someone about previous experience at Doncaster. Lotatala's your man. And for me, Joseph Anang would be a wonderful signing. For me, I think that he would be just the kind of guy we need going forward. He's 23. He's still got a lot of years left. And for me, I think he does a wonderful job. I think he's consistent enough for me. So, he has made mistakes in the past, but every goalkeeper makes mistakes. That's just part of football. If it keeps happening on a regular basis, that's when you start having a problem. But for me, he's just got this aura about him. I don't know what it is, but I think he's got this aura about him. For me, he stands out as a commanding, efficient sweeper shot stopper. So I think he's perfect for what we need right now. The next keeper on this list is True Grant from Manchester City. Does the surname sound familiar? He is the son of ex-United and Stoke City goalkeeper Lee Grant. Of course, was most recently at Ipswich before retirement. He's 18 years old. Now, not for 1 second am I saying this is a permanent deal. Not for 1 second, because I think I've got a pretty good guess that he's probably going to sign a new contract with Manchester City this summer. So I think this will preferably be a loan deal. But for me, he's one of the best young keepers to get on a possible loan deal. He's a modern day sweeper keeper, ticks it off the list. Comfortable building from the back, ticks it off the list. Excellent shot stopper, again, tick. Very comfortable on and off the ball, which is brilliant. And of course, the legacy of Lee Grant would be in him. When I see some of the highlights of True Grant in goal, it does remind me a bit of a Lee Grant. He is his father's son. And for me, would be a really good young keeper to take into next season. There is that risk of it being his first senior loan spell. However, for me, I think it's worth the risk. He's one of those players that's worth the risk. And I would probably say, especially with him being such a calming presence in the penalty box as well, I would say that he has a lot of comfortability about him, and there's less of a risk attached to this untried senior loan potential option. So I think it's worth the risk, and I think he's a potential player for the future. Don't get me wrong, if he doesn't sign a new contract at Man City and he ends up leaving on a permanent, and this is the guy we're after, then fair enough. I mean, this guy would be incredible. Absolutely incredible. And for me, I just feel like this signing is just less risk. There's less risk attached to this one, despite him being an untried loan deal. And finally, we've got probably one of my top choices here, Brian Maher. I cannot say enough about this guy. 23, Derry City, out of contract in November, so it would require some kind of minimal fee or an early termination of his contract with some compensation towards Derry. However, he is more than worth the risk of that minimal fee, of that compensation fee. He is more than worth the risk, and here's why. An efficient, brave shot stopper, comfortable on the ball, comfortable out from the back, 18 clean sheets in 36 games in the 2023 season. He was the goalkeeper of the year 2023 for the Irish Soccer Writers, an exceptional passer of the ball, known for turning up in big games. And for me, he's the number one choice. For me, in terms of all the goalkeepers out there, realistically, I think he's the number one choice. I think he should be top of most people's lists for goalkeepers, for clubs who need goalkeepers. He should be top of everyone's list. For me, he's just that damn good. He is a really good shot stopper. He is an efficient passer of the ball, an exquisite passer of the ball. Very specific, very detailed, world-class shot stopper. And for me, I think a move to somewhere like Doncaster could be very, very key. That Irish connection with Ian Lawler, again, could be massive. For me, I think that Brian would fit in perfectly at Doncaster, especially with Ian there, being an Irishman as well. Just for me, I spoke about True Grant and the Man City, and, Ian Lawler's ex-Man City, so again, he'd have that connection with True Grant, with Brian Maher, Ireland, Lawler's Irish, again, that connection's there. I think he'd settle in very well with Ian. And for me, I think that he'd be a wonderful keeper for this division. He'd be 100% a wonderful keeper. In terms of, and this is just my early expectation, early prediction, I feel like for me, Brian Maher is, in my opinion, just as good as a Harry Lewis when he was at Bradford. For me, in my opinion, he's just as good as Harry Lewis. And I love Harry Lewis. If he won, we weren't going to get him at Bradford anyway. But to be fair, even before the Bradford spell, he would have been wonderful back in the day. So for me, I feel like he kind of lives up. He kind of reminds me of like a Harry Lewis in terms of the quality that he brings. And the quality he brought to Bradford, Harry Lewis, was exceptional. And it kind of reminds me of that, or kind of makes me think of that quality. So Brian Maher would be too much of a big opportunity to pass up on. So next up we go to right backs, and first of all, the 7 that didn't make it into the top 3, there's still some real quality there. I mean, Connor Barrett of AFC Fylde and George Wind of Billericay Town, 2 non-league fullbacks who have a lot of potential to go. I'm sure we'll get EFL moves at some point in the next year or two. Josh Emmanuel previously worked with Grant McCann at Hull. He's at Carlisle now, just been relegated. That'll be a pretty good buy from someone who just got relegated into our division. So again, that'll be a nice pickup for us to move forward. Experienced as well. Arkell Jude Boyd, he's very much the risk option. However, is it a risk worth taking? Absolutely. 21, still got massive potential to give. And I think a permanent deal and a long-term deal with time for him to develop and progress and move forward, I think could be key for him. George Jatau, a loan option from Middlesbrough. He's been shining in that Borough under-21 squad this season. And again, I think a senior loan is what's needed for him next. And finally there, Tom Nixon, ex-Rovers loanee. Of course, he'd be on there as well. Cammy Logan from Queen of the South, another player there as well. Cammy Logan, for me, again, I think there'd be a little bit of risk attached to it, but I think for me, I think he develops certain traits that's needed for the right fullback role. And like I said, Tom Nixon, obviously ex-Rovers, I think a permanent deal for him would be amazing. But what about the top 3 on my list for right fullbacks? So we kick off with a man who killed it in his Newport County loan, and that is Lewis Payne. He's out of contract next summer, so would require a minimal fee. However, there's the opportunity to do a loan deal as well. He was the 3rd best assisting right back in League 2 this past season, on loan from Southampton at Newport. 5 assists in 31. He's able to play comfortably on either side, great vision, and has a consistent, consistent, and effective passing range. That's the best way to describe it. He's a complete wing-back who can also play as an attacking fullback. He loves to make great overlapping runs as well. He's a very quick, pacey player. His overlaps are his major strength, or one of his major strengths. He has great vision as well. For me, he's got lots of potential ability to unlock, and he gets himself into great positions that are attack-minded as well. That's the great thing here. Now, there are some things to improve on. He's not overly confident when a winger's taking him on, and I think Jody Jones at Notts County, beating him countless times, kind of displayed that. He's been known at times for not being involved in defensive duels, and he won't win many aerial duels because of his height. However, his pace, his energy, his drive, his overlap, his passing range, his crossing ability at times, I think he's a risk worth taking. I 100% think he's a risk worth taking. I wouldn't even call it a risk. I don't even call him a risk because at the end of the day, he's the 3rd best assisting right back in the league this season. So Lewis Payne for me is someone who would definitely deliver on the big occasion. Shout out to Kieran, the Newport County fan, Kieran UTC up the county, who, great guy, love speaking to him. And he told me a lot of things about Lewis Payne. And again, I just think he'd be a wonderful signing. I think he's the kind of right back we need in this division. So I think that a minimal fee is worth it. If you want to do a loan to buy at the end of next season, then fair play. I would be on board with that deal as well. If Lewis Payne was an option, I'm pretty sure Rovers would do a deal, whether it's a loan deal and then look at a permanent option in the summer, or if they were very confident about him, they'd do a loan with an option to buy at the end of his contract, whether it's mandatory or compulsory. So for me, I think he's definitely a player that I would be looking at 100%. Next up, a player who was linked to the club via P. O'Rourke. Whether it's true or not, we don't know at this stage. But for me, he is someone who I would still be looking at anyway, and that is Gyro of Boston United. Out of contract this summer. There's a chance of him going back to Boston. There's obviously clubs like Scunthorpe and Grimsby who will maybe look at him. I'm sure Swindon might have a look. A very low-cost option for Swindon during their current struggle. However, I think he's a wonderful player, and I would be definitely looking at this guy. One of the best defensive players in the National League North this season, experienced across the EFL as well. Isolates his man one-on-one, which is very important for an attacking fullback. Full of pace and energy, plays well under considerable pressure, and for me, this is a talented long-term prospect, a talented long-term option for the club. For me, Rowe would be just an excellent signing long-term. I think he delivers on the big occasion. Obviously, just got promoted into the National League with Boston. And, he's a winner. At the end of the day, he's come from a winning squad, and we need to look at people who have won stuff. And whether that's promotion, whether that's playoffs, whether that's a trophy of some kind, whether they were on the bench or the reserves for a squad who won a trophy, either way. I go back to True Grant at Man City. He's 18. He was part of the under-18 squad, under-21 squad. But at the end of the day, he's from a club that's just won a trophy in the senior level. And for me, like I said, I think that Southampton, Lewis Payne, Southampton, they could win the playoff final. As I'm recording this, the playoff final's not happened yet in the Championship, but Southampton could win it. So, Rowe comes from a winning club and who's won playoffs and got into promotion. So, we've got a winner on our hands here. And at a young age, with the experience he's got at a young age, I think he's very, very key to the way we operate in terms of the way he, develops his play. He's got an amazing attitude off the pitch as well. He's got plenty of potential, and there's a possibility of doing this deal. But the main thing here off the pitch, his attitude, according to character reports, articles that I'd seen, speaking to Boston fans, he's got an amazing attitude. And again, that's something you need. You need good representatives off the pitch as well as fantastic players on the pitch, consistent players on the pitch as well. So Rowe, for me, ticks every single box for what we need in this kind of position. And finally, we have someone who's out of contract next summer. However, someone I don't think a lot of people will have had on their list. Devan Tanton. Let me tell you about this guy. 20 years old, Colombian and American, citizenship / nationality. He makes powerful strides forward to execute short and penetrative runs. He's agile. He links up well to create and effect 1-2 combination plays. You know what? That point's very, very important to me because one thing during build-up play that I wanted to see a bit more was the 1-2 movement. It's not always about 1-2 movement because, I think it's very, very clear from the stats this season and the way McCann sets up his team. We're not a possession side. We're not going to keep the ball all the time. We're just going to try and get forward as quick as we can. And we're very much a pressing side. We're very much a counter-pressing side. And, we are forward thinking. We do press in numbers. And we counter press in numbers as well, and we're not very stale on the ball. We're very much link the play quickly, get it up the pitch, and find your way through. The 1-2 combination plays for me are important with that style of football, and I think Devan Tanton would link up well with that. And I think there's some experience underneath, like the likes of Jamie Sterry. I think working with Richard Woods, working with Tom Anderson, working with Maxwell Senior, I think gives Devan Tanton all the experience in the world. And, he exploits space very, very well with his crossing abilities, an aggressive but reasonable presser, again, which is more suited to who we are as a team. I think he's an underrated prospect with the highlights that I saw from this guy. There's plenty of potential to be unlocked, in my opinion. And for me, whether it's a loan deal, whether it's a minimal fee with a year left on his contract, I just feel like there's something about this lad that really sticks out to me. I don't know what it is. I have this feeling. I have this huge, huge, huge feeling that it's one of them deals where you can't do nothing but just say, oh yes, please take him. So for me, I think he's a very underrated prospect and someone that I would definitely be looking at going forward. Position number 3 on this list, and it is left centre backs because, as you know, we need pace, drive, and preferably a young project player. But as you can see, you've got some experience in there as well. Jacob Badow of Morecambe. I mean, how this guy's not been taken yet, I have no idea. Morecambe are going through a terrible situation. I really hope Morecambe sort it out as soon as possible. But Badow, from a footballing standpoint, would be an impressive pickup. Loads of experience on that left-hand side. Gives Jay McGrath a chance to develop as well because he is still young, still needs time. You've got some youth prospects in there as well. Rory McConville of Brighton, very good defender. Noel Atom of Brighton, so you've got 2 Brighton players in there. Atom, a German international, so it gives us a bit of international flavour going into that team. You've got Kalen Sesse of West Ham, very much a Declan Rice style player. You've got the next John Terry, Alfie Gilchrist in there. He There was reports a while back that he might need a loan spell this summer. I think League One or League Two is probably the perfect time to develop him, and I think a loan for Gilchrist would be just amazing. I would very much rate that deal, and I encourage anyone to rate that deal if it gets announced. Obviously, Jaden Warner just came off a loan spell at Notts County, and you see that one particular defender at the bottom, and that is Connor O'Riordan at Blackburn Rovers, formerly of Crewe. John Ryan said he wants that guy. John Ryan said in January he would want to sign that guy because he was brilliant against us when we played against them away from home in the league. He was incredible, and I would look at a loan deal for him 100%. But here's the top three left centre backs that I've gone for this year. Now, I think I've been criticised a little bit on social media for wanting this player because we need more experience. However, I still rate this guy. It's Dan Ellison of Chippenham Town, out of contract next summer. A minimal fee, £90,000, £95,000. I would pay that money 100%. No doubt he's going to get offers from League One and League Two. For me, I just feel like he's ready. I think he's ready to go into this side. And to be fair, you don't need to start him week in, week out because he's still a teenager. You've got time to develop him. You've got time to bring him into this side. And for me, that is very, very important. He's a progressive defender with a towering presence, making him a real threat from set pieces. And there we go. That's 1 point straight away. What's the first thing we need? What's the main point we need? The defender. We need someone who can win from set pieces in attacking areas and defend from set pieces in defensive areas. We need someone who's a threat from either side of set pieces, both attack-minded and defensive-minded. And Dan Ellison ticks every box in that department. He's comfortable bringing the ball out from the back, which is exactly what we need. He has an efficient and diverse passing range. He has a bit of pace about him as well, which ticks a lot of boxes there. He's an aggressive player with a senior football intelligence IQ, which is just exactly what we need in a teenage defender. He's a project player with serious potential. That's the best way to describe Dan Ellison. I would 100% rate this move if the club said in the next couple of weeks, Doncaster Rovers are delighted to announce that we've signed Dan Ellison on a 2.5-year contract with the option to extend it by a further year and a half. Booyah. Absolutely booyah. Even if it was just an 18-month contract with the option to extend it by a further year and a half. Again, that would be incredible. It could be any contract. It could be a 2-year contract with the option of an extra year. It could be that. It could be that. But I feel like Dan Ellison is worth it. 100% worth it because he's still 19, still have a heck of a long way to go. You've got Faulkner, you've got McGrath, you've got Olowu, you've got Wood, you've got Anderson, you've got plenty of defenders there ahead of him. But when the likes of Anderson and Wood get to a stage where they can't play here anymore, or get to a stage where they retire, you've only got 2 centre-backs either side there. You need that extra guy who's going to push someone for a place. And for me, Dan Ellison ticks that box. Now, admittedly, the next two are from the Irish League, because, of course, apologies, I forgot to say it before, but apologies for not getting the Scotland and Ireland top 5 targets videos out. It just didn't happen eventually. But I did mix it up by having some Scottish and Irish targets, as you'll have seen already in this video. And here's another one from the Irish League who's out of contract in November at Derry. Cameron McJannet. Works best in the back four system in a centre-back partnership. Excellent on the ball and comfortably plays out from the back effectively. Ticks every box for me. Direct and attack-minded defender full of pace and energy. That ticks that box. Physical, strong, wins many duels, and would only require a potential minimal fee. Again, this guy is just absolutely worth it. He's 25 as well, so he's got a bit of experience behind him. Cameron McJannet, for me, would be a very, very underrated pickup. And the reason why I call it underrated is because he ticks every box for the kind of centre-back we would look at bringing in. For me, he just ticks every box. For me, he just ticks every box. And I would go so far to say it's probably one of the smartest defensive pickups you could pick. I mean, he's a former Stoke and Luton youth international. He had a loan spell at Kersnashton a few years back. He just has this aura about him. He has this potential about him. And for me, I see it as a win-win scenario. 100% I see it as a win-win scenario. And for me, I think he's one of the better options out there. And finally, for your centre-backs, again from the Irish League, Sligo Rovers, another 25-year-old, out of contract in November again. New Zealand and Dutch citizenship / nationality. Nando, Pijnaker, or Pijnaker, I think that's how it's pronounced. So if I got that wrong, Nando, apologies. He's a progressive defender, primarily left-footed. We need a primarily left-footed centre-back. We haven't got a primarily left-footed centre-back in our squad at the minute, and he would tick that box. Dominates defensive duels and the amount of shots blocked. He's an effective dribbler who's comfortable on and off the ball. Brilliant. Great pass interceptor. Very reactive. Great reaction speed, both mentally and physically. He's a unique prospect with decent experience. Again, he's someone who, for me, just ticks every single box. And again, I think that League One clubs will probably look for him. Won't be surprised if other top-end League Two clubs look in for him. And for me, I just feel like he's got it. He's got it. He's got that thing about him. He's already picked up an assist in the first 8 games in the Irish League already this season. So already he's showing exactly what he's capable of. He's got experience abroad with Rio Ave in Portugal, with Grasshoppers in Switzerland, Zurich's under 21s as well. Obviously experience in New Zealand at youth level, Denmark as well with FC Helsingør. And again, for me, I have this feeling about him. I just have a really good feeling about Nando Pijnaker. I'm not too sure how it's pronounced. I'll have to work on that if he ends up signing. But yeah, he's just a wonderful player, and I really would take a chance on him. I really would. The penultimate position in this video is central midfielders, and again, you've got a real range. First of all, Jando Fuchs of Peterborough United, someone who a lot of Rovers fans would want, a lot of Rovers fans seem to want, as he is leaving Peterborough out of contract this summer. You've got a mix of youth in there as well. You've got Cameron Humphreys of Ipswich. He needs a real senior loan deal or a senior move somewhere right down the line in the near future, because he needs to get out there and develop. And I don't think he's going to get the game time with Ipswich now in the Premier League. Kane Taelor and Toby Collier of Man City and Man United, respectively. 2 young, impressive teenage players who could do some good. Collier is like Casemiro 2.0, in my opinion, in terms of Casemiro in his prime, not Casemiro this season. Kane Taelor, for me, has some great versatility. He's a wonderful option, energetic. You've got Ethan Braley, of course, formerly of Rochdale, now at Brentford B team. I think a loan deal for him would be very, very smart. I think he's got plenty of potential in him. You got Josh Osterfield, who just came from playoff finalist Crewe on loan from Huddersfield. I think with Huddersfield in League One now, with their relegation from the Championship, I think it's less likely. However, I think the option's still there. And finally, Matty Virtue of Blackpool, a bit of experience in there on a permanent basis. Again, he'd be wonderful, but financially with the wages, it would be a huge, huge risk depending on how much wages he gets offered or how much he would take. But let's look into the 3 midfielders that I've chosen for this particular role to replace the outgoing Matty Craig. So we kick off with a potential loan or permanent option, could be a permanent, and that is the 21-year-old Crystal Palace former Dundee loanee Malachi Boateng. Not too sure how you pronounce it. Extremely impressive physically and is strong in stature against the press. A real technician who's comfortable and consistent on and off the ball, has a wide range of passing and he links the play very effectively. Needs a permanent move, in my opinion, to secure senior football to continue his development. He's a really talented player, though, with plenty of potential going forward. This is the kind of signing you would make as a football club long term. He just ticks every single box. He just ticks every single box. And there's a lot of Dundee fans that rate this guy. He, for me, is one of the most underrated loan signings in terms of his performances this season in any of the 5 leagues in England, plus Scotland, plus Ireland, plus Northern Ireland. He, for me, has been one of the most underrated loanees. I think he's been brilliant. I think highlight-wise, he just shows great stature as a defensive player. He thinks he thinks forward as a defensive player, and for me, he's just a really good presser of the ball. I think he presses well. I think he holds himself well in his position. And I think long term, I think he does really well. I think he takes over from Ben Close long term. And for me, I think he does the job. I think he's a wonderful, wonderful player. And I think he deserves an opportunity like this to really prove himself on a senior stage on a permanent basis. AFC Fylde fans may hate me, but I still want this guy 100%. Dubbed the non-league Rodri, Taelor O'Kane of AFC Fylde. Out of contract in June 2025, however, I mean, come on. You've got to get this guy on a minimal fee. I don't care how much it costs. 2022-23 Academy Player of the Year. A simple player who doesn't overcomplicate in possession. He can favour shorter and simpler passes. He settles the tempo. Has a lot of brilliant senior intelligence for a teenage midfielder. And for me, he is one of the best National League teenagers in years. I mean, this guy has just got everything it takes to be a top quality footballer. And no disrespect to AFC Fylde, but I would seriously pay any single bit of money to take him off their hands. He's just that damn good. He, for me, just demonstrates such senior intelligence and top level thinking and top level movement and physicality and possession build up. You know, for an 18-year-old, he's just got this level of maturity about him for an 18-year-old that just strikes me as world class. And for me, he does absolute wonders in this squad. I think for me, he's a brilliant option to have. And long term, he takes over from Ben Close, 100% long term. And that's the kind of player you need to be looking at here. Either a loanee or a young player who can take over long term from Ben Close, who's a decent option now as well. And I think Taelor O'Kane, like Dan Ellison, fits the bill now, not just in the long term. For me, I rate him so much. I rate him so highly. And Fylde fans may hate me or they may agree with me. But for me, I think Taelor O'Kane's the right kind of player for us. And finally, for central midfielders, this one could be considered much of a risk. However, I think it's a risk worth taking and ticks every box. 19-year-old Mahamadou Susoho from Manchester City, out of contract this summer. No doubt probably going to sign a new one. This would be a senior loan deal for me. If he does leave on a permanent, then that's just stupid from Man City because this guy's got serious potential. He has a natural and uncoachable exuberance as an attack-minded defensive player. Technically gifted, has an eye for passes, key passes especially, and very comfortable on the pitch, on and off the ball. He learned a lot from Rodri, which says a lot about how good this guy is. A commanding ball-winning midfielder who builds the play very well. Again, I feel like he needs a senior loan deal to really show exactly what he's got. And Susoho, for me, would be a very serious talent to have on loan. With his Manchester City background, learning a lot from Rodri, with his exuberance in the attack, the way he thinks forward-minded as a defensive player, the way he glides about the pitch, the way he builds the play up, the way he utilizes the possession game, even when they're not playing possession-based football at times, it just strikes me as amazing about how good and how varied this guy is at 19 years old. He's the perfect kind of loan deal. He might be untested, he might be untried, he might not have had a loan deal in the past, but for me, I think he's more than worth the risk. 100% more than worth the risk. And finally, we go into your wingers. First of all, of course, the 7 that didn't make the final 3. Of course, Benicio Baker Boetti of Brighton. You've got Yago Santiago of Spurs and Stanley Mills of Everton. All 3 young players in Premier League clubs who need senior loan deals. I think Santiago might be out of contract as well. So I think, and then I think one of these or a couple of these could end up being good permanents on a decent basis as well. But all 3 would be good senior loan deals. Zach Brunt of Barnet. It would get George Broadbent working a lot more closely next season. I think that'd give Broadbent a bit of a push next season as well. Having that connection with Zach Brunt again, of course, adaptable in the midfield as well. I spoke about Scottish talent. Kai Fotheringham of Dundee United could be considered unrealistic, but for me, I think it's more than worth it. Even though it might be an unrealistic signing, I think he's just that good. He's just won promotion with Dundee United, so I think he's more than worth it going into next season. Fabio Giallo of Barnsley, of course, the Barnsley manager situation has been secured with Darrell Clarke coming in as manager, and for me, I feel like he's just, again, another guy who needs that loan spell or needs more game time. And finally, Ellis Taelor on that list. Ellis Taelor is a very highly rated young talent at Sunderland who will be leaving anyway and needs that opportunity. And I think he gets an opportunity at a club like ours. But let's go through the 3 wingers who made it into the top 3 list. So we kick off with some experience in Myles Hippolyte of promoted champion Stockport. Out of contract this summer, many will say yes, his injury record this season has been shaky, and yes, that has been a major factor in terms of why he might not get much League Two offers. It might be more National League than League Two. However, I still think he's worth a chance. He's good in possession, strides about the pitch fluently and effectively on his day. He could be a real mentor and role model for the younger players like Carl Hurst, Tavonga Kulea, all the young wingers in the under 18s as well. You got an opportunity there. For me, he's a great character off the pitch, on the pitch, and Stockport fans will tell you no different. He's adaptable either side of the wing. The season before this one, he achieved 4 goals and 3 assists during the 44 League Two appearances. He's an experienced winger who's leaving the title-winning squad this summer. And again, he's come from a squad that has just won something. We need winners in this squad. And for me, he is technically a winner because he has made some appearances this season and he has been involved in some capacity. So for me, Myles would be a very underrated, experienced pickup. I think Carl Hurst is the future. I think Myles will probably know that going into this, but he's the experience you need to hold the fort. He's the experience you need to keep you going. And short term, I think Myles holds the fort, and I think Carl Hurst will develop alongside him. And for me, I think he's just that damn good. I think on his day, he could be an exceptional winger in this league. I wouldn't say he'd be the best winger in this league on his day, because I think people like Jamie Walker on his day would be a brilliant winger, but his injury record's quite shaky at times. So, for me, I think Myles Hippolyte, injury-free, under this brilliant new medical team led by David Rennie, would be an excellent pickup. He'd be an excellent pickup for this squad. And I think, for me, would suit Doncaster Rovers to an absolute T. Next up, a young and exciting loan deal option from Manchester City, the 18-year-old Chall Ndala. Now, a quick and exciting player down the flanks with real drive, pace and energy. A direct, dangerous player, especially in one-on-ones. Skillful and technically gifted on the ball. And exceptionally creative in the final third. Chall Ndala is a serious baller at this age. For me, he's just got this natural exuberance of a Man City player, even at 18 years old. For me, though, he needs that senior loan for regular matchday experience. He needs that senior development, and I think Man City going to Doncaster on loan fits the bill. For me, I think a club like Donny would develop him really, really well. I think that, it's not too far away from Manchester. It's not as far as London anyway. But for me, I think that Ndala would just be this magnificent young player with a lot of potential who can be potentially unlocked. He's got a real opportunity to do that. We need quick, direct wingers, and I think he ticks every single box in that department. And finally, someone who I rate extremely, extremely highly, and that is Ben Parkinson. Now, this 19-year-old from Newcastle United is out of contract this summer. I don't know whether he's going to sign a new one. There's an opportunity to be a loan deal if he does. Otherwise, a permanent option could be great. Coppinger has a working relationship with Newcastle, being an ex-youth professional. So, I think there's that relationship there already. He's versatile across either side. He's another player who's direct and dangerous in one-on-ones, full of pace, exceptionally creative attacking positions. He needs senior football, though, to further his development. And if he does leave Newcastle on a permanent, this for me is another true long-term project player. He is someone for me who Grant McCann could really unlock and develop extremely well. And I really rate this guy. I 100% rate this guy. He's just got this natural exuberance and flair on the pitch and this charisma while he glides across the wing. I just have serious hopes for this guy. And for me, I think there's something about Ben Parkinson that really strikes me as commanding and demanding as a young winger. I think that long term, I think he takes over on one of those sides. And for me, I think it's well worth a potential risk. 100% well worth any risk to be taken. So now we go into my predicted squad. So I've picked up 2 squads. Of course, in total, we've got 6 signings on each squad. Of course, we've added Jack Taguchi and Joe Sabara in there as well, in the attacking midfield role. Of course, good to see De Grucci signing an extension. Good to see Sabara being the first signing at the club. But let's go through then, in my opinion, who for me would be the players to go for. So, from the first potential squad, I've gone with Louis Molden. I've gone with Connor O'Riordan on loan. I've gone with Lewis Payne. I've gone with Mahamadou Susoho on loan. I've gone with Zach Brunt and Ben Parkinson. I think that for me, if you gave me that window right there, let's say Joe Sabara, Ben Parkinson, Zach Brunt, Susoho on loan from Man City, Connor O'Riordan on loan from Blackburn, and Lewis Payne, I'd take that. 100% I'd take that. Because if you think about it, you've got EFL experience in goal. You've got an EFL previous loanee last season at right back, backing up Jamie Sterry, who was the third best assister in right back in League Two behind Jamie Sterry. You got two strong fullbacks there in the right hand side and the left hand side. You've got Connor O'Riordan, who adds so much to that back line anyway. With there being enough there already. You've got Susoho's quality as a young Man City player in that midfield with Close, Bailey and Broadbent. You've got Zach Brunt on one side, linking up on Broadbent's side. You've got Ben Parkinson with Koulé on the other side, along with Joe Sabara anyway. So, for me, that is an exceptionally strong squad. But what about predicted squad number 2? And this is predicted squad number 2. So you got a couple of loanees in there. However, a few permanents as well. So, of course, as usual, Joe Sabara. You got Brian Maher as a goalkeeper. You got Dan Ellison as defender. George Gitau on loan, which I've gone for. I've gone with Taelor O'Kane. I've gone with Fabio Giallo on loan. I've also got Ellis Taylor of Sunderland. That's who I would look at. You could mix and match those two squads together, but those are the two different variations of 6 players, one in each position that I would select. So I'd go with Molden or Maher for goalkeeper. I'd go with Payne or Gitau on loan. For right back, you got Ellison, of course, or Connor O'Riordan. In defence, you've got Taelor O'Kane or Susoho on loan in the midfield. You've got Ellis Taylor or Ben Parkinson on the right, and Fabio Giallo on loan. Or of course, you've got Zach Brunt on the left. So you've got a good range there. Let's wrap this up. So there we have it, ladies and gentlemen. That is your 2024 summer recruitment video. You got some experience in there. You got some youth. You got some potential. You got some project building going on there. And in a matter of fact, compared to some Premier League clubs, this is actually a project that's actually going to go on and do well. I've got full confidence in McCann's abilities to get the most out of this project. He wants to win the league next season. Any player who doesn't think they can win the league next season, go and find a new club. That's the message of Grant McCann. Players know that. That's why the majority of them are still here, because they want to win things as well. The signs that are going to come in want to win things. Sabara missed out on 2 final victories at Wembley this season. He will want to go and win things this year. I mean, this could be a very good season of Doncaster Rovers, and I think that if you pick any of those players, along with there is other players out there that are not a part of this video, that I'm sure the recruitment staff will look for and will probably tick the same boxes as these players. But these are just players that I would personally love to see us sign, either on loan or on a permanent basis. So, thank you very much for watching this year's video. We'll be back with the next big transfer recruitment video in January. So stay tuned for that one. And for now, ladies and gentlemen, I am the CHALL. Ta-ra for now. That's full time. Mean that badge to you.